Just going to confirm we are here today in the Business in Abundance interview series with the magnificent Christy Holt, the
Hi, everybody.
happiness hussy. Christy, thank you so much for coming on today. Gosh, we met a while ago. I feel like it feels like eons ago. I know you've gone on some vacations that I've been very jealous of watching you from from afar.
That's me all
Tropical
the time.
tropical warm places, ski bunny. I've seen you in the ski bunny, like all the things. So I love it. It looks like you are living your best life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks, by the way, for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Like you said, we have been connected for a little while. It took one conversation to be like, oh, we are each other's people for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Well, and since then, I've done lots of interviews, meeting more and more incredible women, and just finding that this type of a platform is so great to just connect with people and for people to really see who you are and kind of step out of the just I'm a face on a social media page or a
Yeah.
post or a group. And you have so much vibrance, of course, and so much exuberance and personality. And so I'm excited to share you with the world and hear a little bit about what you have going on and what you have to offer. Let's just start a little bit with tell us, who you are, anything you want to share about what brought you to become the happiness hussy? I know
Yeah.
that's a big question, but let's just start there.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is a complicated question because as humans, we basically are a combination of every moment that we've experienced. All of those things kind of contributes to who we are. But I will share some snippets, and I will share the little anecdotal story where the happiness hussy name came from. So thanks so much again for having me. I'm Christy. I call myself the happiness hussy. I'll share that story with you all in a moment. But to give you a brief overview, I am a podcast host. I have my own show called Create Your Happy, which is all about creating the happy life, relationship, and business of your dreams. This season, the focus is self-love because I truly believe that when we can actually learn to love ourselves, we set the foundation for an amazing life. And the relationship we have with ourselves is actually reflected in all of our experience. And the truth is, all of our experience is a reflection of our perception of it anyways, right? There's nothing that's not happening that's not going through that filter of our own perception. So, when we can work on the inner self, we can absolutely transform all of the external world that we're perceiving. I am also an author, an international best-selling author. Thank you. Thank you. And I do have my book here. It is called Unstuck for Women. And ultimately, this book is about shutting down the spirals that you have, the overwhelm, the overthinking, the anxious thoughts. And it's honestly, this will tie very much back into a little bit of my story that I'll share with you because I was there. I was stuck and I was stuck for, oh my gosh, quite a while. And I don't know if y'all know how it feels to be stuck, but you have this sense of like there's got to be something more, but you can't quite seem to move towards it. And that was me. My thoughts were running wild. I was overwhelmed and anxious. I would like literally wake up overwhelmed and anxious. I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Really sucked into the thought and emotional spirals. And if you've had one, it's like one trigger thought and all of a sudden your mind is going 6,000 miles an hour. You cannot it's so all over the place and you cannot actually come up with good solutions when you're in that space. You can't actually create the life and experience you want when your mind has taken over. So my book is aimed at shutting down those spirals so that you can actually begin to create the experiences and the life that you desire with your intention, as opposed to letting things run on autopilot. And so, when I was there, I was in a relationship that honestly, it just wasn't working. But as a mom, I had this huge, I guess it was a fear. It was just this weight of the uncertainty
Mhm.
around leaving and what that would mean. And I had this guilt and this shame about my marriage not working. And, the idea of breaking my family apart was devastating. And
Mhm.
so I stayed for way too long, we'll just say. Thankfully, while I was staying near the end, I really started to do some of this work on myself, some of this inner work, some of this personal discovery work to uncover what was really going on so that I could actually change it. And what I realized was, as long as I was sitting there and kind of looking at the external, waiting for, something to shift in my relationship, something to change in my circumstances, I was just a passive participant and life was happening to me all of the time. And so when I realized, well, wait a minute, I'm the common denominator. And like, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your show. I'm a bit sweary. Like it
You
hit me
are
like,
allowed to swear. You are allowed to be you 100%.
okay. So I had this moment like hit me like, holy fuck, it's me. And I was just like, oh my God, it's me. Like, this is all me. And then thankfully, it only took me a few moments to be like, wait a minute, though. You know what that means? I'm also the solution. I'm the common denominator in all of the solutions that are going to take me into the life that I really fucking want.
Wow.
So that's how I took back my power. And the truth is, I'd never given it away. You can't give it away. No one can take it from you. It's just that you don't realize that
Mm.
you still have it. Right. So
Uh-oh, I lost you. Are you there? We lost sound a little bit.
claiming.
Oh, there it is. Okay. We lost sound for like a couple seconds. It was so strange.
Anybody else?
That is so strange. Hopefully it's just happening on my end. Can you hear me, Christy?
Both frozen. We're both frozen screen.
Oh no. Oh no, what's happening? Let me try
Oh, it's
turning.
funny. Maybe I'm catching up. My video's in slow motion.
Wow, we might have a lag. Okay, Mercury retrograde. I was just talking
Yep.
about it this morning. Like electronics are going. I think we're both back now.
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
might have missed the last few seconds. You were, oh, it was so good. I might have missed the last few seconds, but that's
You know what?
okay.
I just bring in too much energy, I guess. Sometimes that happens.
Shutting down like the system. Not
The
about, well,
system can't handle it.
amazing. Well, I mean, you said so much there. Just, I didn't hear the happiness hussy piece if you
I didn't
wanted to.
get to that yet.
Oh, okay.
I,
Well,
I will
keep
circle
going. Keep
back.
going, girl. Yeah. So I just want to add that, like, I think probably most, if not all women can relate to that feeling of being stuck at one time or another, whether it's feeling trapped by our own insecurities, imposter syndrome, our own self-doubts and thoughts, or a job that we feel we're stuck in, or it can even be the role of being a mother. We love
Yeah.
being mothers. We love it, but sometimes we feel stuck and trapped.
Yeah.
And,
I call that just a momitis. That's my term for that particular thing of feeling like you're only a mom. Like in my experience, I was in people's phones, not as Christy, but as my kid's mom, right? Like I'm
yes,
a contact in I don't know how many people's contacts where
true.
I don't even have a name. I'm just so and so's mom.
And
So
it's so
I
easy to
really
feel
did
that
get,
way. Yeah, it's
yeah,
easy to get into that role of like, I'm just my job, or I'm just a mom, or I'm trapped in this relationship of this role of,
yeah,
wife, partner. So I think that this idea of getting unstuck and actually starting to like, you know, unpack it, look at it, be aware of it, and then
yeah.
really like work on it from the inside out is so incredibly valuable.
And what I feel like, the pinnacle of a lot of that stuckness comes down to is this feeling of not being enough. And
Mhm.
then also the paradoxical flip side of that, which is being too much. And so for me, it was like vacillating between these two sides. And literally, like, there was no way to be, quote unquote, good because I was either too much or not enough. And it was
Right.
never this happy space in the middle. But the truth is, we're all more than good enough, just as we are. It's just that we have all this conditioning and programming and such that tells us that we are not. And we often internalize things from our experiences. And that's just the way our brains kind of work. We have an emotional experience where our brain connects that memory to the emotion and stores it. And even if you, mentally have forgotten the experience, your body remembers. So it will come up. It's stored in your subconscious and will play out in these patterns, these loops of, you know, stuck behaviors that you feel like you're, in an eternal groundhog day, waking up and doing the same shit day after day after day. And so, when I finally realized, like, wait a minute, I'm the common denominator and I'm the one who can change, I'm the only one who can change this. That's when things really started to shift. And I realized in that moment that what I actually needed was not to, keep my family together for the kids. What I really needed, honestly, was to take care of myself first for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is where things really started to shift. And, now I have actually the most incredible relationship. Like, we don't, I don't even know. It's like, he is like my person 1,000%. We completely get each other, and I'm actually writing a book on relationships. So everybody stay tuned for that one about getting unstuck in relationship. I have
Important one. Yes.
so much to share on this. I am well underway in this project, and I know it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people to have all of this information. But the happiness hussy story, let's circle to that, because it's kind of funny. I had this conversation with my cousin, and we share an aunt who I'm not close with her. I'm not super close with that family because it's actually my biological family that I'm not really that close with. But it was just kind of funny. We're talking about this aunt, and she had said to me something like, oh, I see you online. But she didn't say it in like a really positive way. I acted like, I'm like, oh, I hope you found something inspiring out of it. And she just kind of gave me a look. And so I was, sharing this experience with my cousin, and she's like, oh, you happiness hussy, you, how dare you be so happy and inspiring. And I was like, I fucking love that. And
I love it.
Feel it.
I love it. That's so great. You know what? Whether you rub people the right way or the wrong way, you're rubbing them, right? So
take it or leave it. I know at this point that I'm not for everyone. And that is part of that good enoughness, is to recognize that you can't make everyone like you. In fact, the people pleasing tendencies and the good girl conditioning really go hand in hand, because we are so often taught to, please other people ahead of ourselves. And this was a big realization for me too, that in doing that, I was essentially martyring myself. And I could tell it was actually gone too far into the problem zone of people pleasing when I started to feel resentful, when I started to feel unappreciated, when I started to be really frustrated that I'm giving and I'm not getting what I expected, right? Anybody?
Everybody.
I think we've all been there. And so, I really had to make a shift. And so, thank you, recovered people pleaser. I love to give. I absolutely do. I love to be generous. I love to help people. I love to give and share and inspire and all of the things that I can. But now I set some boundaries, because I know that if I get to the place of where I'm over giving versus giving out of the abundance that I have by caring for myself first, then I can avoid all of that, resentment and frustration and bitterness that literally created all of the overwhelm and anxiety and all of that kind of spiral thinking and emotions that I was experiencing. So
that's huge.
Wipe away the people pleasing and, releasing the perfectionist tendencies really shifted things for me.
Yeah. So I recently, I say recently, but I have been a recovering people pleaser my entire life. And
Yeah.
same thing, always want to give and help. But you really pinpointed it. You start to feel resentful. You start to feel overwhelmed. Things that you enjoyed might start to feel like an energy drain.
Yeah.
And the boundary thing is so important. It's so huge to actually look at. And I think to start recognizing those signs. What are the signs that you're
Yeah.
stepping into that pattern. And one thing I would love to know from you, so if somebody recognizes that they do this, that they people please, they have these tendencies, or they feel stuck, like they
Yeah.
know, okay, I feel like I'm stuck. How do I break out of this? What are some ways people can start to just like unravel that, or start to look at that, or
Yeah.
I would love to hear just any tips for like just stepping into awareness and moving through that.
I mean, I'm gonna say that like probably the most simple, basic thing that you can do anywhere, anytime, without anybody else even noticing, would be to focus on your breath, because
Mhm.
that can really help bring you back into the present moment. The truth is, all that anxiety and overwhelm is when our mind has gone into the future, and all of the frustration and resentment and disappointment and such, uh, depressive type thinking is when our mind is in the past. So
Mhm.
the more we can come into the present moment and avoid arguing with reality, because that actually is a huge waste of time and energy, and just coming into a space of acceptance, right, of what is and who you are right now. And I know that I think people are scared to learn to love themselves because they worry that it's selfish,
Mhm.
or they might become complacent, or they might not have the motivation to make the changes that they feel like they should, again with the quotes, because we got to stop shitting on ourselves. That's something as well. But when we can come into this present moment and just sit with and accept what is and who we are, that that compassion, that grace, that understanding,
Mhm.
and that deeper inner connection with ourself is actually what is going to like launch you forward to creating the life that you truly want. And I say creating because we are ultimately creators. We are,
Mhm.
again, everything through our own perception, right? And so if we want to have a different lived experience, we got to start in here, we got to start in here, and
Mhm.
we've got to really take stock and shift those beliefs or mindsets that we may have picked up, work with, the body and the mind and the soul, bringing them all together so that we can reclaim that power and start designing, our life by choice, instead of
Mhm.
the autopilot survival mode sort of reaction and going with the flow, and not feeling like we actually have any control. Maybe as well, desperately trying to control it and realizing, well, that doesn't fucking work.
So what would you say to somebody who is like, who comes to you and is like, I first of all, what do people typically come to you with? Or what would you say is like some of the top themes that people are like, I'm stuck. This is where I'm stuck. How do I get unstuck? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we get to this place, and it's this just a momitis thing, kind of back to that for a moment, because we know that we want something else, and we very clearly know the things that we don't want, but
Mhm.
we cannot seem to get the clarity on the things that we do want. And
Mm.
without that clarity, it's really hard to get motivated. We don't know where we're going, so how are we motivated to go there? And when
Mhm.
we don't have clarity, we don't know the actions that we need to take, because we don't know where we're going, right? We could start the car, but if we don't have a destination in mind, and now it's not about the destination, it is about the journey, but we have to be moving towards something. So we do need some semblance of clarity, at least to the direction that we want to go. All the details is another thing. Oftentimes I find people feel like they wish they had more motivation.
Mhm.
Again, we get motivated when we start taking action. So it's like this loop of clarity and action and then the
Mhm.
motivation.
Mhm.
And we often spend a lot of time over here waiting for the motivation to come. We often spend this time over here stuck in, analysis paralysis. We want to figure out the whole route before
Mhm.
we start.
Before we even go. Yeah.
And then this other thing, of waiting to be ready. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that's big. I think a lot of people are like, well, when this happens, then this. But life
Right.
is passing you by. Time is going on. So why not take action now? And I think that action is really is really tough for people, and maybe that goes back to the motivation loop. So,
Yep.
like, are there ways, I mean, I think, yes, getting present, breathing, like, focusing on what you want, getting excited about, what you can create in your life, but,
And that's
uh
anything, by the way. Whatever your heart desires, you can experience that. You can create that experience for yourself. And if you are having a desire inside your heart, that means it's meant for you. It's not teasing you to say, haha, you can't have this. You don't deserve it. No, you fucking
that's your
deserve
inner
it.
voice talking to you. Well, you gotta listen, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's stuck in momitis and they're like, "Ah, I don't like, okay, I've had this thought. Let's just be real here. I have experienced this where I'm like, oh, I work and I'm a mom and that's kind of like what I am, but I used to be so fun. I used to be so exciting and I wanted to get out in the world and I flirted and now it's like, but
And
like
now I'm
it's
snarky
almost
and
like
impatient, right?
it's almost like she's who I used to be, but I know she's not. Like, I know
Yeah.
she's still in here, but how would, like, you approach somebody where they feel like, "Well, I'm not like, I'm this now. I'm not that," but you really know you're still that, but it feels hard to bubble that back up to the surface.
It's so hard as a mom because I think that that transition literally changes everything, right? And I don't think, again, I think that's actually just spending a lot of time thinking about the past. And you are not that old you anymore. You have actually grown, you have expanded. All of that is still within you. So it's not gone. But you can't go back. You can't turn back time. You can't become who you used to be before kids because having kids forever changed you in all of the best ways. Honestly, I think, oh my gosh, okay. Kids are the
True,
biggest
it's true.
challenge
Yes.
in life, but they are also the biggest teachers, right?
And the
There
biggest
is,
motivators. They have actually motivated me to skyrocket in other ways that maybe I never would have. So there is
yeah.
that. So
And
yeah,
man, they push you to grow so much. So this is the thing. You have grown, your heart has expanded. You have changed and shifted and gained so many new skills. You wouldn't want to go back to that old you anyways. Now,
true.
I know, I realize you want to bring out
You're
those
good. You are a good coach,
fun
Christy.
you want to bring out those fun and playful tendencies. Honestly, it's clearing away the people pleasing and the putting everyone else first. You have got to fill up your own cup first. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I know this analogy is like overused to hell, but like it's true, right? When you are completely depleted and have no energy left, and you get in this cycle of like, I don't have time and I don't have energy and like
Mm.
you're not going to be able to give at your best. So taking care
You're
of
gonna
you,
stay where you are.
top
You're just gonna stay
priority.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you want to bring back the fun parts of you and bring and integrate those into the now version of you and
Yeah.
create this, maybe this future vision that you have of yourself to be free and happy and patient. Maybe that's a struggle. I know these kids, they don't listen. So, and I know that moms out there, they 1,000%, they had kids because they love their kids. They want the best for their kids. They want their kids to be happy and fulfilled and successful. And let's just for a moment sidetrack on success and happiness. You define that, nobody
Yes.
else. Okay. So stop
Mhm.
shitting on yourself. This is nobody else's definition. You do not need to live up to anybody else's expectation. That's the people pleasing shit coming back in.
Yeah, that
Um,
approval, that feeling like you need to be,
that
and a lot of that
external,
goes back to childhood and maybe or
it for sure does.
relationships or feeling rejected or feeling like you failed at something. So I think like
Yep.
really stepping into like the power of who you are, who you've always been, but who you are right now and really owning that. And I think that's something that um that's scary for people, right? Because
It
what if
is.
I did step fully into my power? Am I going to be too
Ooh.
much? Like, I know I can be a lot because I've always been told I'm too much. But when I show up and I step into my power, I also magnetize what I want 100 times more.
You know what? You're never, you and everybody listening, you can't be too fucking much. You can't. You might be too much for the wrong people. That is it.
100%. Yes.
Okay. This is not about you. This is about those people. They can't handle your level of awesome, and that is their loss. And that's okay because, like I said, not everyone's gonna like you. I know not everybody like me, right? Like People misinterpret what I'm saying, and frankly, if they're, committed to misunderstanding me, like some people I've had relationships with in the past, you can't argue with that. That's just a waste of time and energy. So to stand in your power and to start to, live up to your fullest potential, you've got to take the reins. You've got to be intentional about what you're creating, and you've got to get to the place where you can decide. And if you're in a place where you feel like I'm not choosing this, I see you, because I realize at many times it doesn't feel like you have a choice. It feels
Mhm.
like you are trapped, buried under the weight, probably of guilt and shame and martyrdom. I get it, because I've been there. You're thinking, what will they say? What will they think? How can I do this? What is the outcome going to be like? What am I supposed to do? And it is easier to self-protect. And
Mhm.
people say self-sabotage gets in their way. I view it differently. I think it is all
Mhm.
self-preservation, because
Mhm.
at the ultimate root of it, your mind, I call it the asshole mind in my book, like your ego, right, has this way of stepping in, which looks like self-sabotage, but it's
Mhm.
all about keeping you safe. Now, the
Mhm.
rub is, safe to that ego is not actually good or healthy or best for you. It's actually just what's familiar.
Yeah.
So it's keeping you from what is terrible and uncertain and scary. It's not terrible. It's actually very exciting. So you can flip that one around. All of the things that you haven't yet experienced, all of those versions of you that exist in potentiality, are
Waiting to
outside
jump
of your
out.
comfort zone. Yeah. And you have to, even if it's like slowly just pushing the bounds, you've got to be moving in that direction of getting a little bit uncomfortable, because otherwise, yeah, you're the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? And so, ultimately you've got to push that comfort zone at least a little bit. And in a way, you can do this. You can create the safety in your body so that your body is not going to freak out, right? So building that inner relationship as the foundation, then you can start to push yourself. Maybe you're going to do something that you haven't done before, a new activity. And I'll tell you what, that's actually the way to find what lights your soul on fire, is to try
Mhm.
new stuff,
Mhm.
right? To get outside of the everyday mundane, la 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 la
I was
loop.
just gonna ask you that, like, what
Mhm.
would you say to somebody who's like, "Okay, I wanna start playing with this a little bit. I wanna start stepping outside of my comfort zone. How do I even know what that feels like, what that looks like, or, what's some baby steps that somebody might take to start exploring that?"
I mean, obviously you can start exploring that right here, right? You
Yeah.
can start to visualize yourself doing these things ahead of doing them. If that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, you can envision, what would this ideal version of me that feels free and confident and secure and like I'm motivated and have direction, what are they doing? Right? Meet inside your mind with that higher self, or that, future self. And I bet that they
Almost
have
like
some
act
wisdom.
It's almost like acting or like role playing, right, with yourself. Like, what if I, give an example, re-embodied what, this vibrant, sexy young thing would do out in the
Yeah.
world in this social situation, or, on a date or whatever, like whatever feels a
Yeah.
little bit scary right now, or, how would I show up at work if I was fully empowered, and, you know, how
Right.
would I show up, and how would I be looked at or viewed, or how would somebody, validate me and appreciate who I am? So I love this idea of like almost, I really believe with like the law of attraction or manifestation, that that's a big part of it, is really just visualizing that you already have that thing, or you're already
Yeah.
in that place or in that situation. And really it's the same idea. It's the same principle, that you can see yourself that way and actually embody that experience in your mind, and then actually in reality.
I mean, people talk a lot about fake it till you make it. This is not that, okay? This isn't about being inauthentic. It's not about jumping from here to there. And I realize that oftentimes when you're stuck, that end there destination, the gap is impossibly huge. And so it's really hard because we tend to want to see the whole trajectory of how we're going to get there. But sometimes we can reverse engineer it in a way. Now, if you want to be fit and healthy, and I don't know, I personally love hiking and climbing mountain summits. If I want to do that, I recognize I can't sit on the couch all the time. Like, I need a certain level of fitness to be able to do those things. Now, I don't need to go CrossFit 6 days a week either, right? So for me, it's like the baby steps actually launch you in the direction. And so you don't need to go so far in that you're creating a response, you're trying to, you feel like you're being someone that you're not. Those kind of things are
Or
actually
it
going to
gets too
exceed.
overwhelming to even take those first steps because you're like, "Oh,
Right.
that feels so big, so far off."
So I love working with what appear to be baby steps. They're actually huge. They actually have huge implications, and they're sustainable, right? This is the huge thing. I actually began coaching as a health coach, and so I've done a fair bit of fitness and nutrition coaching, and I have always seen that if clients build in slowly new
Mm,
habits and new patterns, and this could be, if you're currently on the couch, maybe this is taking a walk around the block every day. It does not have to be big. But once that feels easy and natural, you're going to feel then motivated to explore what might be next. Maybe
mm.
you're going to get inspired to take a longer walk, or go for a run or a bike ride, or meet up with a friend, or do all kinds of things that are going to build on what you've started. But the foundation can be built with tiny little pieces so
Mhm.
that they can build easily without disrupting that whole nervous system regulation, you know, and having all that self-sabotage, self-preservation kick in to just throw you back on the couch.
Let's talk a little bit about your book. So,
Yeah.
take me through the journey a little bit of, and I know you say get unstuck, but one thing I
Yeah.
really love about how you show up is like you're really real and you're raw, and it's actually get the fuck unstuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love that because it's almost like that's sometimes what we need to tell ourselves to like give us
Yeah.
the impetus to just like, it's like tough love, right? So tell me more
Yeah.
about your book and this, what journey will people go through in your book?
Yeah, inside my book, I talk about the spiral stopper method, which is my method, this one that I kind of touched on explaining before, right? This getting out of the thought and emotional like spirals, right? When you have that one thought that you know is going to trigger a shitstorm, and all of a sudden you're off in another world worrying about everything and anything, big, small, no matter. You're just distraught and overwhelmed, and you cannot, it doesn't feel like in that space that you have any say or choice at all. It's like you're running on autopilot. And
Mm,
so the spiral stopper is intended to shut that shit down, because you cannot intentionally create or respond from that place of overwhelm, right? This
mm,
is survival instinct, okay? And humans are not intended to live in chronic stress. They are not intended to live in a state of flight or fight all the time. And
yeah.
so if we don't, and there's a whole conversation about trauma, check out my podcast. Actually, I had a great conversation. The episode this week was all about trauma and the shadow self. Lots of
Mm,
value there if this particular topic is something that you want to dive into. But we really want to shift out of those survival mechanisms, because that's what's keeping us stuck in the loop. And when we can shut that down before it gets to the spiral, then we can choose to respond. And this is literally, like a 30 to 90-second window of of calming your mind instead
mm,
of reacting, instead of
mm,
letting it spill out, instead of being triggered, as people say, or activated, or having a big reaction. You're just sitting with it for a moment. And I outline about, I should really count. I keep saying I should count how many, like 40 or 50 tools that you can use, because I realize when you're in line at the grocery store is a lot different than when you're at home alone. Okay. So that you need a toolbox. And that's ultimately what the spiral stopper method is building a toolbox of resources and strategies that you can use to shut down
mm.
the spiral before it takes you out. This way, you are in a more calm and grounded space, which, guess what? The front part of your brain kicks in, and you can come up with actually, way more creative and productive solutions.
And probably save relationships
Oh,
and
a
all
thousand percent.
fights and things, because if we're coming from that fight or flight, stressful, reactive state, that's
Oh yeah.
often where we make, I don't want to say mistakes, but we maybe say things we don't mean, or we take actions that we wish we wouldn't have taken. So I
Yeah.
love that you're providing some tools for that and really kind of teaching, because it's a process to learn, especially if you have this habit of, being reactive or getting angry or being triggered. You're really starting to look at probably your triggers. We all have them, right?
Absolutely. And I do talk about that inside my book. I will give you a snippet of my perspective on triggers. They're just information. It is information coming up for you to look at. That's it. And
Mhm.
so as long as you continue avoiding them, guess what?
They're
Hello, they're like, hi,
gonna
hi, hey, yo, hi. Like, look
Yeah.
at me. But if we can get a little bit courageous, which we do need to be
Mm.
courageously vulnerable to do this inner work. It's true. It
Yes, I
can
love that.
appear very scary.
Courageously vulnerable. I love that.
You know, I have 4 teenage boys. And so this is something that has come up quite a few times. This idea that like vulnerability is weakness. And
Mm,
it's so pervasive. And it's
mm,
fucking wrong.
mm. And in
It's
the
just
male
wrong.
culture, it's like, how do we break that away, as mothers of sons, or, with
Yeah.
men? I start to see some men showing that, and it's such a beautiful thing when they can be totally okay in that vulnerability,
You know, your emotions are meant to be felt, okay? So you can't stuff that shit. Your body will carry it and it will fester, okay? So you need to feel the emotions. Now what you also ideally, I mean, take or leave it. I mean, you can do things the easy way, the hard way. What I've learned is that if you allow yourself to just feel the emotion without the spiral,
Mm,
without the judgments, the stories, the additional thoughts and beliefs and shit mixing all up in there to make it a perfect shit storm of guilt and shame.
yes.
If you can just feel disappointed and be okay with, oh gosh, I'm really feeling disappointed. That didn't turn out the way I hoped. If you can allow yourself to feel it instead of
Mm.
avoiding and trying to hide it and stuff it under the rug, I'm gonna tell you what, that disappointment will leave you so much faster. It might
I
take a
always
day.
I always say you gotta feel it to heal it. You gotta feel
Yeah.
it. If it's sad, if it's anger, if it's frustration,
Yeah.
feel it. That doesn't mean you have to carry it and own it, but
Now.
just feel it, let it process, and just be like, almost like, I think of it as like giving myself an extra dose of love when I'm feeling
Yeah.
something, like it's okay to feel that way. What's coming up? Why is it coming up? How am I going to respond, not react?
Right. You've got to go like the only way to really heal, and I got something to say about healing too because I see that differently than a lot of people as well. But you've got to go through the pain and the discomfort. And the truth is you are worried often. This is how I saw it before. I was worried like, "Oh my gosh, if I allow myself to feel this, if I don't shut it down, like it's going to consume me and it's never going to let go." And that's the opposite of the truth because when you actually allow yourself to feel it, you can move through it and it
Mhm.
lets go of you.
Yeah,
And it's
and you
much less
recognize
complicated.
it. Then you recognize it next time, because I noticed, like, when I've allowed myself to really feel something and take a moment with it, be present with it, the
Yeah.
next time it shows up, "Oh, there you are. Okay. I know how to process you, maybe when
Yeah.
I didn't before."
And sometimes it's, when we're practicing and learning these skills, sometimes we do need a little redirection, not bypassing, but a little redirection, which is kind of what the spiral stopper is about, right? It's just keeping
Mhm.
us out of the detrimental thinking and emotion stories, judgments, and all of that that actually keep us stuck in the loop where we don't actually feel the thing. We're actually just thinking about the
Mhm.
thing and trying to make it mean something. And that is not productive. So if you're feeling sad, let yourself cry. If it helps, go watch a sad movie so that you can have something really valid to cry about, right? And don't get sucked into the stories because that's how you end up dragging that sadness with you for a longer term,
Mhm.
right? And I know that's
Mhm.
easier said than done. It's a practice, it's a journey, it's all of these things. And the way I look at healing is you're not broken, okay? You're human, you're whole. And the
Mhm.
way I view healing is actually returning to your
Mm.
wholeness. And you were never not whole, but
Yeah.
it's this memory thing because as humans, we often forget so many of these simple things like We are whole, and we have all of the potentiality within us, the light, the dark, the good, the bad, all
Mm.
ends of the spectrum. And the truth is, if you operate at only one or the other end, you're missing a whole host of beautiful opportunities that lie in between.
I love that. I love that perspective of just kind of coming back and remembering who you are. And so often people think, oh, that relationship, it broke me. I'll never be the same, or that situation, or, whatever it was, that really tough time, or even traumatic event. I love that really, rather than thinking of it as fixing something broken, it's just coming back to the absolute authentic wholeness, empowered, beautiful spirit person that you are, and that you have the
Yeah.
capacity to do that at any moment. That's yours. That's always yours. And we forget. We
Yeah.
forget. We hear messages that maybe tell us we're not that. And so I think just remembering and continuing to remember. So I love that. And I love the way that you show up with like so much love and energy, but rawness and truth. And I just think like anybody who gets the honor of working with you is going to probably get a reflection of like who they are and that beauty of who they are and all of their potential. But also like, I feel like you're like, you'll give it to people straight, right? Like this
I
is
am a
how
no BS
I
kind of
love
person. However, I think that I deliver. I mean, I'm not perfect. Nobody is. Like say nobody's perfect. Um, I'm not perfect, and I get it wrong sometimes. But I like to think that I'm no BS, but so full of love that it
yeah, that
feels
comes
like
through.
good truth,
Yeah.
right? And I also people don't need to agree with me. You can boldly disagree with me. I don't need you to agree with me for us to have a conversation. In fact, you know what? I'd rather that you were raw and real yourself. I
Yeah.
often say like we're human, so don't apologize. People say like, "Oh, I'm sorry for whatever, being negative or for getting emotional or whatever." I'm like, oh my gosh, no, thank you for sharing your real self with me. I love that. So I invite people to do that. And the truth is I was in a situation where I could have, claimed the victim mentality for a long time. And I did. I felt like the victim. I felt like I was helpless. And the truth is you can rewrite your story at any point in time and you can become the victor.
Yes, I love that. Well, I'm going to put up here a way for you guys to all get to know Christy a little bit more. If you point your camera at that QR code, it's going to take you right to her website. I have
Awesome.
posted her website. Let me also put it
I have
here.
one more little thing to share too, if that's
Oh,
okay.
yeah, of course. We still have time. I just want to make sure I let people know how they can reach you, how anything you want to share with us about how they can find you, your
Yeah.
book, work with you, find your
Yeah.
podcast. Please share all the things.
Yeah, on my website, which is, if you didn't catch the QR, you're not that savvy with technology, coachchristyholt.com. You will find links for ordering my book. It's available on Amazon. You'll find the information for my podcast there as well. And what I wanted to share is I'm actually putting out in a couple of weeks a masterclass on
Mm.
breaking free of people pleasing. So that
Oh,
is called The People Pleaser's Path to Freedom. It is a free masterclass. I am co-hosting this amazing event. It's going to be transformational in and of itself with my beautiful friend Chloe Lindsay. We are so jacked and excited to share
mm,
our insights on where the people pleasing tendencies originated. So, this is going to take us back to
mm.
the root cause of the problems so that you can understand what caused it. And now you have the awareness that you need to start shifting away from that so that you too can
This
become a
sounds
recovered people pleaser.
incredible. So, how do
Yeah.
people find and sign up for this masterclass?
Oh, that is a great question.
I could also
If
post the link later with the
yes,
post for this.
okay, yes. Let's put the link for the Facebook event into the comments for everybody so that if they want to check that out, they can go straight to the Facebook event and RSVP there.
And when is that? That sounds
It is
amazing.
happening on May 15th in the afternoon, but there will be a replay as well. So if the live time doesn't work, I mean, obviously, we would love people to join us live on the Zoom so that we can interact and,
Yeah.
have a conversation about it. But the replay will be also available.
What an incredible I mean, I think that whether we recognize that we're people pleasers or not, or have been in the past, I have a feeling, a knowing that there is going to be something in there for everyone to tap into or to look at or find some awareness or maybe even see, oh, yeah, maybe I am people pleasing or I don't have the boundaries that I really want
Yeah.
to have.
And ultimately, this, I kind of said, this is like, if you want to know why you're a people pleaser and how the fuck to stop it, like you want to be at this masterclass because is going to shed a lot of light, not just on the people pleasing, but on how you're experiencing life and how you're creating those experiences. So there's going to be a
Mm.
ton of information that's really going to have a massive impact if you come and take it in and take a close look at what's really going on.
I love this. Well, thank you, Christy, so much. This has been a
Yeah.
great conversation. I look forward to more conversations with you. I know we barely scratched the surface of like all of these topics, and there's so much to dive into, so much for people to start to look at and recognize, getting unstuck. If you could just leave us with one morsel of wisdom that we can go out with in the world today and
Mm.
start to like get unstuck, what is it? Give us one of
Oh,
your Christy wisdoms.
I mean, honestly, I have so many ideas to share. I think I'm just going to leave you with this idea that the answer that you're looking for, first of all, it's not out there. It never was. It never will be. The answer is within you. And the solution to all of the problems that you see is love. So
I love
start by loving
that.
yourself. Let that overflow, and that's how we're going to change the world. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I
thank you.
love that. Yes, yes, love. Well, have a beautiful day. Thank you, everyone who's joining in, who's watched the replay. Please reach out to Christy. Check out her website. She's got a podcast, she's got a book, another one on the way about relationships. She is so vibrant and beautiful. And I just appreciate you and having this conversation
Mm.
today. So thank you so much, Christy.
Thanks so much for having me. I loved it. So I appreciate you so much.
You.